Okay, actually, I can call it to order. It's Krista McNamara, Town Clerk,
Hi.
calling this meeting to order at 8:09 p.m. Representative Town Meeting, regular meeting for February 28th. Lois Schneider as Vice Chair of the Rules Committee. If you can start from here, Lois.
Lois, I have just made you a panelist.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
You're all set, Lois. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody for joining the meeting. This will be, we're winging it here. I'll be pretty blunt. So I'm going to follow the agenda, and when we catch up with Seth, we will, with everybody's approval, we will add some other pieces to it. I will do the best I can with the agenda as it's stated, and we will go from there. So thank you and sorry for the delay. Thanks, Krista. Thanks, Cecil, for starting it. Thanks, Krista, for calling the meeting to order. I would like, without objection, I would like the acceptance of the agenda. Cecil, is anyone objecting?
I don't see any objections.
Okay. I would, for the approval of the minutes, do I need a motion?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion and approve the minutes of the January 24th, 2022 RTM meeting. Do I have a second?
Yes, we have a second, Christine Castles.
Thank you, Christine. Are there any changes, comments, suggestions about the January 24th, 2022 minutes?
I've got several raised hands, but I don't know whether those are leftover seconds or not. Cheryl Russell, do you have a comment?
No, I'm sorry. I got my hand up and down at the wrong time.
Okay, not a problem. Adele Coniff, do you have a question? I don't seem to be able to unmute you. So.
No, I do not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing none, shall we vote? Cecil, can you do a poll? Are you?
Do we have a poll? Let's have a look. We have no poll set up. It'll take me just a second to set that up.
Thank you so much.
The motion is to accept the minutes
Of January 24th, 2022 RTM meeting.
Yeah, that third agenda item.
Yikes.
So Mike went through, did you get like in the first of the history?
Well,
Well,
not working out, is it?
No, we're winging it here.
You want to go to audio? I can record any no votes, Lois?
Yes, I think we should record no and abstentions, and then everyone else will be assumed to be yes.
Let's try this number.
Excuse me, I think
213.
I think I found it.
1 second, yeah.
213-929.
Okay, so there it is.
Yeah.
4212.
Wayne,
We haven't got Wayne. We need Wayne's.
Lovely. 1 second here. I can
Oh, thank
just
you.
decided to start operating.
I'm just on the phone with Seth. Seth has now got his computer operational. He should be joining us shortly.
I got
Wayne,
a lovely note from somebody.
Wait,
Might have been Dell
Seth.
or Microsoft. Saying, "We're gonna put we're updating your computer. How do anything?"
I'm sorry, Krista, ask your question again.
Lois, the meeting is called to order. Lois, we're on agenda item number 3, and there's a poll to vote for the approval of the minutes. That is where we stand on the agenda.
So it just, you know, in the meantime,
Okay.
Oh, here we go, wait a minute.
Wayne,
Very exciting moment here.
which I think has Seth in the background.
Yes, I think Seth is about to join us.
Okay,
He's
but
waiting for his computer to boot up.
mute your phone so we don't have to listen to the phone
Sorry
conversation.
about that. Sorry about that.
issue is because of the way that the photos are put together.
Cecil, do you have a certain number of people that have,
We have 81% who have voted.
okay,
82%. People are still voting, 84%,
okay.
85, 86, 88.
Are we good,
I am
Cecil?
going to close it. We have 89%.
Thank you.
The answers are 97% yes, 0% no, 3% abstain.
Okay, I'm going to ask that the people abstain.
Raise your
Abstain.
hand.
Raise your hand.
We have Ian Laird, Brian Rahill, and that's probably it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let's move on. The next item on the agenda is, I'd like to make a motion to amend correct the November 8th, 2021 RTM minutes and the hands out for the December 6th, 2021 RTM meeting, deleting the specifics of how people voted for the Board of Ethics. Can I have a second? Cecil, do you have a second?
Sorry, yes, Jack Davis.
Okay, thank you. Is there any, let me explain this, the meeting, the minutes were first initially sent out and they had the voting by person, who people voted for in the Board of Ethics, and we do not publicly show who voted for whom. So we've never officially voted on these minutes, and what we're doing now is changing the draft of those minutes and then voting for them. Is there any questions or commentary? It's the results are the same, we just do not show who everybody voted for. Because remember, when we're in the RTM meeting, we do it on a piece of paper and nobody really knows who voted for whom. So we wanted to correct both that and then the handout for the follow-on December RTM meeting. Are there any questions or comments? Cecil, do you see anything?
Jack Davis has a hand raised. Let's unmute him. Jack, I'm sorry.
Hands down, it was for the second.
Oh, okay. I don't have a poll for this question, and it's more complicated than I can.
We'll just ask for any no's and any abstentions and assume that everyone else in the meeting is a yes, and that
Okay.
is
So
our way of, well,
this is item number 4 on the agenda.
right. And it's correcting the November 8th minutes and the December 6th handouts. Are there any no's?
I see no hands raised.
Okay. Are there any abstentions?
We have 1 abstention.
Could the person please identify themselves?
It is Ian Laird.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Is there anyone else abstaining? Okay, then I think we're good on this. Krista, are you okay?
Yes, I have that recorded. Thanks, Lois.
Thank you. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the announcements. Listed under the announcements is that we need to have a RTM representative on the Blight Review Board. It's a very important role. And I think people have done really, our previous RTM members have done excellent jobs on the committee, on the board, and we're looking for a new one. If anyone is interested, please send if you have any questions, please contact Seth, or I guess Seth would be the one, or certainly me. And if you're interested in running for it, please let us know, because we really would like to fill our seat on the RTM. And since the RTM is full, thank you, everyone. We have a lot of people, and I'm hoping somebody can step up and be our representative on the Blight Review Board. Okay, with that, we're going to move to presentations. The first presentation is an update on the town financial position and budget. This will be done by the chair of the F&B committee, Jack Davis. Jack, are you ready?
Cecil, can you put up the first slide, which is the Board of Ed financial position?
I cannot because I don't have it, do I?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Sent it to you.
Give me a second and I'll find it.
While Cecil is looking for it, because just giving a report without the numbers, and I'm not reading all of them, wouldn't be as worthwhile. But this presentation is basically to kick off the budget season. The RTM has not had in the past a report on where the town and the Board of Ed are status-wise on their financials. F&B thought it was a good idea, as well as since both boards have approved their budget by this meeting, to do a combination of the two and go over where our starting point is. For the sake of time, and also because neither the Board of Ed nor the Board of Selectmen have presented their budgets to the Board of Finance, I will not be taking questions at this time. If Cecil can hold off.
I am terribly sorry. I do not have it in my email.
All right, hold on. I'll resend it.
If you could send it to me now.
Yep, I have to go to Outlook.
You have my, you definitely have my correct email address?
And that's the question. Let me first find what was sent, and then I'll see if I do. Cecil, what is your email address?
It is Cecil, C-E-C-I-L, at cecilwade.com, C-E-C-I-L-W-A-D-E.
Wait at. Just sent it. It should be coming from my Gov. Sorry, folks.
Don't know why. Maybe you could send it to Lois or Krista.
Okay, let me send it to.
If we could just make Jack a panelist, can he take
Well,
control?
Let's do that. Raise your hand, please.
Hold on. I'm on the wrong.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just give Jack control there.
You got it. I see Seth is here.
Cecil, am I a panelist that I can share my screen?
Well, not yet. I'm having a little trouble
Okay.
making you a panelist. Try making a presenter. Okay, well, I can do that. So you are now a presenter.
Is that helping?
It
Do
is.
people?
This is a spreadsheet, right?
Yep.
It is visible.
Okay, great. The first thing I'm doing is the Board of Ed. Basically, you can see that the Board of Ed is anticipating a difference of about $372,000 going forward. And that's based upon the Board of Ed already forecasting with those balances that are encumbered, hence they know what salaries they're going to be paying going forward, and some other data. On the far right, you see the 7-month period, and I'm going to go down so you can see all of it. As we're saying, the anticipated budget surplus is $373,000, is contingent upon the receipt of expected insurance payments from storms Ida and Elsa. To date, approximately $313,000 has been reimbursed, with the Board of Ed awaiting the final reimbursement of about $70,000 expected to be in the April-May timeframe. One of the big differences this year happens to be that the Board of Ed submitted claims of almost $7 million. The claim included 6 more students than what was originally budgeted. The budget reimbursement rate is 67.5%. At the budgeted rate, the anticipated reimbursement would be about $240,000 higher than budget, which is predominantly driving the difference of the 373. At the same token, on ELP is lower, as multiple regular education students were reclassified as special ed during the year, and thus are not billable. Some loss of facility rentals are also due to COVID and enrollment concerns. That's why the revenue side is at approximately 170 instead of 240 or more. Overall, diesel fuel is lower as the Board of Ed was unable to use first student for the first half of the year for athletics due to driver shortages, and the Board of Ed Suburban has been increased as a result. Overall, staff spending is down as the Board of Ed has not been able to fill certain intern positions at the secondary level. Mid-year turnover, which is unusual, has increased in the Board of Ed turnover salary savings. The additional portion of budget control used to anticipate increased enrollment, section break, new hires at grade level, then so that the new person being hired is lower than what they're replacing, remains unused. There's about 0.6 of an FTE. Next slide is the Board of Selectmen financials. And on this, you see the encumbered amount. The big difference here that you're seeing from what was adopted and what is revised happens to be a change in the accounting for park and rec revenue and expenses. If you remember last year, we ended up having to pass a resolution to account for the fact that there were expenses associated with the revenue that weren't appropriated, so we had to do that. We're changing how that's going to be done in the fiscal 23 budget. It's going to be a special revenue fund, and then the net amount at the end of the year will be closed off. But to compare apples to oranges, there's a slight difference there. Overall, property tax collection remains consistent with the 5-year average at 98.3% as of the end of January, and will be over 99% by year's end. The robust housing market has continued, with town clerk revenue at 102% of what was budgeted at $1.6 million, and there's still 5 months to go. In the prior year, that number came in at $3 million, and 1.6 million was what was budgeted for fiscal year ending 21. I mentioned the difference in the Park and Rec revenue. It's up $718,000 versus $665 budgeted. And again, we still have 5 months to go. Debt service, the majority of the principal is paid in July and August. Remaining amounts, there's a few that will be done in February and April. That's why if you look to the expended, it's at 8.2 million versus a planned of 10,163,000. Difference in the Board of Selectmen operations is that you see for 238,000 is primarily due to two items that we approved in the RTM. One was the FEMA RTM resolution for 110,000 and the purchase of Crimmins Road for 128. Those were taken from the general fund. They're in the revised budget. And as such, there's a difference of those two amounts. The hiring of civilian dispatch also occurred 6 months early, and that changed some of the funding. It was funded by the Board of Finance contingency. That is part of the overall general fund budget on the Board of Selectmen. So while it occurred early, there is no net effect on the budget itself. So now we're getting to what everybody wants to see and have heard about. Here's our proposed budgets as approved by the two boards. As you can see, there appears to be a significant increase. Also, there's a significant increase in the grand list. So I just want to start and remind everyone that the Board of Finance chair at the State of the Town stated guidance was 2.5% for core business and 3% including growth, providing there was a compelling case. That being said, based upon a preliminary review of the budgets with contractual salary increases, both the Board of Ed and Board of Selectmen have had health care increases. There's increase in fuel and utilities, increases in existing software maintenance costs. F&B is not sure that the boards could have achieved the 2.5% guidance cap. More on this will be dealt with at the budget session in May. The financials on the prior slides, a starting point for the Board of Finance and subsequently the RTM, determining final numbers and how things are paid. Please note, on the category that we have here, on the fiscal year 22 budget, it's what was requested, not how things were paid. Because if you recall, there was no capital being paid that wasn't bonded, paid for by general funds or paid by the reserve fund for capital non-recurring assets. But we always go back to what's requested because that's what the two boards and the Board of Finance control. The bottom line, or the denominator, which is the mill rate, is really driven by the market. While the town's grand list had significant growth, as you can see, at 1.95% down here, and honestly, in all the years I've done this, I don't recall such a growth on a non-reval year. There are expenses related to that growth that are included in the fiscal 23 budget. And again, more on that during budget night. The Board of Selectmen approved their budget on February 7th, the Board of Ed on February 8th. Tomorrow, both boards will formally present their budgets to the Board of Finance. After deliberations and working with the RTM committees, the Board of Finance will determine how things are paid, and we'll hopefully have some input into that. Board of Finance will have a public hearing on both of those budgets on May 8th. Their final vote is April 5th, and the RTM vote is April 9th. I do want to say, on a final note, and just reviewing these, this is a starting point. There are going to be changes to what goes on here. As an example, when the budget was originally made and the debt service was evaluated, from the time it was done in December to when we issued the bonds in February, we paid a slightly higher rate. We still got the best AAA rate you can get, but that difference in the rate, just because the market was rising, will have the debt service for fiscal year 23 increased by about $111,000. In addition, later on tonight, we're going to be voting on the town hall union contract. That's currently in a contingency account, and it will be trued up to be reflected in this budget. Right now, it's in a contingency and not at the various departments. There are other changes that will be occurring. Again, we have not decided with the Board of Finance what will be bonded, what will be paid potentially from the general funds, and being discussed tonight at the Board of Selectmen and eventually coming to the Board of Finance and then to us will be the ARPA funds. And currently there's about 530,000 plus, maybe a little more than that, of current Board of Selectmen capital requests that are potentially going to be paid by ARPA funds. So again, starting point, a lot of work still to be done. And I don't want to get in too much of the budget, only because it's not fair until the two boards have presented. So that's our basic wrap up. And I'm sorry I'm not taking any questions, but let's move this meeting on. Thank you very much.
Everybody, it's Seth. And having struggled with my computer this evening, not of my own making, Microsoft decided it was going to do an update in the middle of everything. But we're up and running. And so I apologize for being late and for goofing this up, but I'm now in a position. Can everybody hear me? Is that coming over to you?
I would
Yes,
say
Seth.
yes.
Oh, great. So thank you, Lois, for bailing me out. Outstanding as usual. The next item, Jack, don't go too far, is item 22-2, approve and not reject the town employees contract. And for the Finance and Budget Committee, Jack Davis.
I'm Jack Davis, District 3, Chair of the RTM Finance and Budget Committee. I move Resolution 22-2 to approve, not reject, a contract between the Town of Darien and the Town Hall Employees Union. Do I have a second?
You
Is there
do.
a second?
Christine Castles.
Thank you. If there's no objections, I waive the reading of this resolution. In a joint meeting with the Public Health and Safety Committee, the F&B Committee met on February 22nd of this year, and Town Administrator Kate Bush was present. This contract covers the Town Hall and Darien Police Department administrative workers, civilian dispatchers, custodians, and skilled workers, building inspectors, EPA officer, P&Z employees below the assistant director level. There are about 40 members of the union, 9 of which are the civilian dispatch. The union approved the contract on January 25th, Board of Selectmen on February 7th, and the Board of Finance reviewed the settlement at their February 15th meeting. Of note, the Board of Finance does not vote or approve or not reject union contracts. The union contract covers the period July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024. While the overall terms were resolved over the summer of 2021, the civilian dispatch section, which required new verbiage, was not resolved until December. Here are the basic terms and conditions of the contract. General salary increases are 2.25 effective July 1st of 21, and the same increase July 1st of 22, and 2.5% effective July 1st, 23. The first 2 years are consistent with the market. The final year is a little bit higher, but that's due to the union agreeing that all new employees post-approval will be part now of a defined contribution plan. Overall, the cost of both the step increases, because there's both general salary and step, increases will approximate 3.7% overall. Approximately 1/3 of the members are at the highest step, and at the end of the contract, it's anticipated over 40% of the union membership will be at the highest step, thereafter only receiving general salary increases. Key to this contract is that all new employees post-approval will be part of the defined contribution plan. That's moving away from a defined benefit plan. This plan has a 5-year cliff vesting. Already, a defined contribution plan has 1 member. The terms are required for employee contributions of 5% and an employee match of 5%. This represents the second union contract that the town has to adopt the defined contribution plan for new employees. That's a very important step going long-term for the financial health of our town. On the health insurance, moves from 9.5% that was effective June 30th, 2021 to 10% July 1st, 22, 10.5 effective July 1st, 23, and at the end of the contract effective June 30th, 24, 11%. And I just want to mention this because this is very nicely done. Because contracts are never typically resolved at the end of the contract, by moving and agreeing that the health insurance will be 11% on the last day of this contract, it means that it's 11% on the during the time that the new contract is being negotiated. Significant language needed to be incorporated for the modified work schedule agreement. That's the 4-day work week and the 8.75 hours per work day. This is the first union contract to codify such language. The parties also agreed to a performance evaluation process. Other areas included internal job postings were reduced from 10 work days, which would now, based upon a 4-day work week, almost be 3 weeks, to 10 calendar days. Ordinary overtime language needed to be changed because the work day is now 8.75 hours. And there were some minor modifications to the bereavement leave and that. Significant time was required to address the telecommunication dispatches, better known as our civilian dispatch. New language was negotiated concerning shifts and meal breaks, voluntary overtime, mandatory overtime, order back procedure, callbacks and order back pay, shift differential, holidays, and vacation scheduling. Employees will receive back pay for hours worked since the contract is approved dating back to July 1st, 2021. The town has accrued for the anticipated contract and will not have a financial effect on the town projected financials. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, once the contract is quote unquote improved, the town will true up the appropriate salaries at cost center departments for the proposed 2023 budget. One last comment. Although I use the term approved, the RTM is really voting not to reject this contract. We do not approve it. If the contract is rejected for any reason, the contract goes to mediation. Mediation does not do well for towns like us, and the mediator decides one side or the other. It's not splitting down the middle. This isn't King Solomon, and there's no compromise. The RTM F&B committee voted unanimously not to reject this contract and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Next, Mac Patrick, Chair of Public Health and Safety.
There we go. I think I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you. Hi, I'm Mac Patrick. I chair the Public Health and Safety Committee. As Jack mentioned, we had a joint meeting on the night of February 22nd. And I'm certainly not going to cover what Jack went into, but after the joint meeting, we broke, and then our committee met separately, and we discussed the contract further. Points were made regarding the telecommunications dispatchers that staff the police department. It was noted their role is to allow officers to attend the police work and not staff the police communications center. Additional discussion pertaining to the 4-day work week at Town Hall had questions that were raised as to whether the public is served by Town Hall being closed for regular business hours on Fridays. It was noted how difficult it might be to reinstate Friday business hours if Darien residents were to request this. But that being said, with 11 of 16 members present, we voted unanimously to not reject the contract, and we ask that you do the same. Thank you.
Thanks, Mac. Are there other committees that wish to report on this? How are we looking, Cecil?
I don't see any hands raised, Seth.
Okay. Any town officials?
No hands.
Okay. Members of the RTM?
All quiet.
All right. Members of the public? We have public, Cecil?
We have people who don't have district numbers in front of their names, so I would guess so. But you
Yes,
can't
there are
be
members
sure.
of the public here, Seth.
Okay, thank you.
I see no hands, however.
All right, then ready to vote? Let's go ahead and poll.
Okay, give me a second here, and I will.
Hmm.
We have 87%, 88% voted so far. 90, 93, 94, 95. I'm going to close it with 95% having voted.
Great.
The vote is 96% yes, 1% no, and 3% abstain.
Great.
Clara Sartori has her hand raised.
Yes, Clara.
I just wanted to point out that the poll, it's a matter of semantics, I guess, but the poll said, shall the contract be approved? And the language that we have in the agenda says not to reject.
Okay. It is without objection. We will interpret the poll as having a typo in it, and that it's to not reject. Is there any objection to that?
Christine Castles has her hand raised.
Kristen?
Christine, could you unmute yourself or lower your hand?
Yes, I had the same question about the language. It was to be not to be approved rather than not to be rejected rather than approved, and you answered that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Then with objection, the motion passes.
Do you need to enumerate the no and abstain votes?
Seth, I think you should get the no votes.
Yes.
And you can do abstain also.
Correct. Yes, both.
So if you voted no, please raise your hand. Sheila Sherwood. And 1% would be one person, I think. Thank you, Sheila. If you abstained, please raise your hand. If you abstain from this vote, please raise your hand. Andrew Millar. Laura Pesci Gray. And it looks like that's all who are going to raise their hands.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Recorded.
everybody. So the item passes. Next item is 22-3. Adjustment of existing RTM district boundaries to conform with the state redistricting. For the Tgsna committee, Frank Kemp, chair.
Frank, raise your hand, please. And unmute yourself.
Enter so I get a screen grab, please.
Frank, it might be easier if, is your presentation the same as what you gave to the Board of Selectmen?
It is, and so if you go with me, that will be just fine.
Will do.
All right, if you go just back one page, you show the table of contents up on the beginning. Good evening. I'm Frank Kemp, chairman of the RTM Town Government Structure and Administration Committee. I move resolution 22-3, adjustment of existing RTM district boundaries to conform with state redistricting. Do I hear a second?
Please raise your hand if you're seconding. Ann Gale Holt.
Very good. If there are no objections, I wish to waive the full reading of the resolution. What we have on the screen is just a table of contents of the package that was sent out last week with background information about this resolution. Essentially, what we're dealing with is the fallout from the national census every 10 years, the census of 2020. This caused the state to redraw its congressional boundaries, which is still in dispute in the courts. But when the state redrew their own House of Representatives and state Senate boundaries, the committee, bipartisan committee, moved along and got that done on an orderly basis.
Uh-oh.
It was, there we go. Okay. It was proposed and announced in November and approved by the legislature, and the governor signed off on it, I believe, in early December. When it was revealed as to what had happened to the state and Senate boundaries, it caused our own registrar of voters, Susan Gray and John Vesey, severe consternation because, as we'll see in a moment, the boundaries of the House and Senate are not aligned. And it has caused a lot of aggravation or problems. When looking further into this, we found that there are other communities that have the same problem across the state. We also found that these decisions approved by the legislature and governor are immutable or unchangeable because we thought, well, maybe there would be some way to amend them. In in brief, and thanks to our colleagues in District 1 for helping me format a nice little presentation here. The redistricting proposal has been developed by the Registrar of Voters and reviewed by the town clerk and the RTM Tgsna committee. The finalization of this plan is needed by mid-March because the Registrar of Voters need to prepare for the voting lists for the Registrar of Voters to be in compliance with the Secretary of State calendar. And I should note that any moves that we discuss in the actual language of the resolution we have in front of us protects any RTM member that happens to be in one district now and would be in another district after we pass this. It so happens that there is one person that is involved in this. So let's look at the state district maps, and if this can go down, what you'll see is a map of Darien showing that District 141, which we're have been associated with for a long time, is there in green. That includes Darien and a little slice of row 8. But there is also now introduced a District 125 House District, which is in our District 1 and goes on up into New Canaan and loops over towards Stamford. So hold those boundaries in mind as we go to the next page and see the Senate districts. Now here's an interesting situation, just a tad further up so we can see the label. There we go. The gray, look, this map is to a different scale. Now Darien is smaller in here because it shows Norwalk on one side and Stamford on the other, New Canaan to our north. We have 3 Senate districts. The southernmost one is basically a Stamford district that comes over to us south of I-95 and touches a little bit of Rowing as well. District 25 is the one that starts off in Norwalk and comes over into the middle of town. District 26 is an odd one. It starts in white on the map. It starts off in Westport, goes up to Wilton, Weston, and comes along and shaves off a little bit of New Canaan. It cuts right across the north of Darien and winds up over in Stamford. Well, if you held the idea of the House in mind and now look at the Senate in mind, it creates havoc up there in District 1, creating 4 precincts out of what was our District 1. So here on the chart, you see that 2 and 4 are basically 2 and 6 and 5 and 3 are basically undisturbed, but there's a real problem up there in 1 because of the intersecting House and Senate lines from the state. I should note that while we have this diagram up, District 4 has always had a little appendage of 4.01 on the western boundary that has had a House and Senate boundaries coincident with Stamford. And so the Registrar of Voters, instead of having 6 districts, really had 7 because they've been dealing with 401 for a while, and that is sort of an additional burden to them. So as we go down to the next slide, we'll see just what happened up there in District 1. And starting at the southern side of District 1, you have Senate 25, House 141. And then going counterclockwise around, you have a section in the middle with 25, 125. The far north, 26, 125, and then in the west, 26, 141. Every possible combination of House and Senate, which would be 4 different districts, presenting the Registrar of Voters with just a real headache to have where we used to have 1 polling location. You could wind up with 4 precincts, or you could wind up with 1 district in which there would be 4 lines, 4 books, 4 voting machines, 4 sets of clerks. It's just sort of to put it frankly, a mess. Part of the solution, not a solution, but we haven't solved the problem, but we've made an improvement in the situation, which we'll see in a moment. If we just go down to the next slide, this next slide, which you all have copies of, shows through our 7 districts the way they are right now and what is being proposed to happen to them. I ask you to look at that at your leisure. It's a little hard to read on the screen, but the next slide will show it a little bit better. It shows that the little district 401, if it were merged up into 5, would have the same House and Senate candidates between the two of them. And that would be a move of somewhat less than 200 voters. Up at District 1, the district that is up in the northwest corner shares the same House and Senate characteristics as our District 3. Again, it's about less than 200 voters. Now, the reason I hedge my bets about the less than 200, we used the statistics from January 1st when we started to work on this. And then the statistics for February 1st come out, and they're different. Well, people move in to town and they transfer their voting out. And so every month, the registrar of voters comes up with a new total on which to base it. So it's safest just to say, I mean, the actual numbers I think we used in the chart are like 178 and 172, but it's safe to say less than 200 voters are involved in each of these moves out of the 15,000 registered voters that we have in town. So we're going to move very quickly over the next slides. Again, walking through your package, this slide shows of the different districts that we have. If you were to take 182 out of District 1 and plug them into 180 into District 3, what the effect of that would be, and then similarly moving the little 401 into 5, what the difference would be, and it doesn't quite add. It doesn't quite add up to a percentage point. Next slide. The actual street addresses in District 1, District 4 are there for your reference. Rockwell Lane, Sherry Lane, Timber Lane, Hunt Road, then down District 4. Brookside and Hillside and Anthony and Victor Drive. These are available in your package for further reference. Okay, let's keep going. Thank you. Kate, are you doing this?
She is.
Anyway, yeah, here is the resolution that we have before us this evening. It's labeled 22-3. It's been drafted by town council, and it refers to an accompanying memo, which we'll see in a moment. But there are 2 interesting paragraphs at the bottom, which were actually devised 10 years ago when there was the same type of realignment that took place. And there were several people who lived in one district were elected to one district, and then as a result of this change found themselves in another district. So these are very nicely phrased paragraphs that give protection to any RTM member who is involved in a change. Fortunately, we only have 2 who are involved in District 1. We had District 1 had a meeting to discuss this and reviewed how that all would work. So a person who had been elected out of District 1, for the example, in this case, after this change would still be a member of District 1 for the duration of their term. And then if they want to run for re-election, they would run in District 3 because they would now live in District 3. Fortunately, down on the little move from 401 up into 5, we do not have any representatives living in that area. Following this resolution, and part of this resolution, is a 3-page memo from the registrars of voters going into this in proper detail. If we can scan this, and you all have this available for your review, it describes what the issue is, how it's been resolved and the proposal. So this memo, nicely prepared by Susan Gray and John Vesey, is part of the resolution and will travel with it. So that's 3 pages, good detail, and then the final pages of the map of the town. So we're now on the last page, which is the Tgsna report, which I guess I need to read to you in summary. Special meeting of Tgsna committee was held on Thursday, February 10th to consider a resolution as proposed by the Registrar of Voters. Attending were 6 of 10 members of the committee. It was a quorum. After discussion of the Registrar of Voters presentation and the draft resolution, the committee voted unanimously to recommend that Rules Committee enter the resolution on the agenda for February 28th and recommended that the RTM approve the resolution at this time. Respectfully submitted Frank Kemp, Chair, Tgsna. So that's the report. Thank you very much. And turn it back to Seth to moderate any questions that we might have.
Frank, thank you. A lot of work. Your team did a great job. A lot of work to analyze it and to figure out exactly how this works. And nice job. Are there any other committees that we can report on this?
I see no hands raised.
Okay. Any town officials?
I'm sorry, Patty Baumgartner has raised her hand.
Is she? I'm calling for town officials. I'll get to the, unless.
District 1 was secondary on this resolution, Seth.
I'll call on him.
No, I just wanted to thank Frank for all his hard work. He did a tremendous amount of hard work. We gave our presentation to our District 1 a week ago, since we were most directly affected with the 4 breakup in the sections, and it went all so smoothly. So thank you to John and Susan and Frank for all their hard work. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty. As I say, they did a great job. Excuse me, now let me say, so we agreed no other committees. Any town officials?
I see no hands.
And members of the RTM?
I see no hands.
Members of the public?
I see no hands.
Okay, then we're ready to vote. Okay, let's proceed to vote.
Okay. At this point, we have 89% voting. 90. $93. We seem to be stopped at 93 and at 1:10, so I'm going to close the poll.
Okay. So it appears
We have 100% yes.
100% yes. It's unanimous. Congratulations, everybody. The motion passes. Next item on the agenda is 22-4, Library Truck Grant. Speaking for the Finance and Budget Committee, Chairman Jack Davis.
I'm Jack Davis, District 3 Chair of the Finance and Budget Committee. I move Resolution 22-4 RTM to consider the approval of a special appropriation of $38,000 to increase the library grant for the purpose of replacing the existing library truck, plowing equipment, and salt spreader. Do I have a second?
Clara Sartori.
Thank you, Clara. If there's no objections, I waive the reading of the resolution. A bit of background. The town pays for the operating expenses of the library. Back in fiscal year 2014, due to the ongoing increasing cost of snow plowing and other moving expenses, the town decided to increase the library grant to allow them to purchase a truck and snow removal equipment. Whilst capital expenses are typically the purview of the Friends of Darien Library, the grant allowed the library to significantly reduce operating costs and thus costs to the town and taxpayers. Now, 8 years later, the truck is on its last tires, so to say, and needs to be replaced once again. The mileage is low, and one would have expected the vehicle to last longer than 8 years. F&B reviewed the truck's various usage: snow removal, hauling large pieces to the transfer station about every 2 weeks, watering the hanging plants during the summer in the parking lot, and transporting tents for events in the farmers market, establishing the library's presence. To evaluate this, F&B built a model to determine the annual break-even costs of the truck rental, snow removal, and other activities to validate the purchase of the vehicle, including approximately $2,500 annual maintenance and overtime costs. It should be noted that the truck is operated by one of their employees, who typically opts for time off instead of overtime, so overtime is relatively low. Based upon the model, it was determined that the increase of the grant to allow the library to purchase a new truck, plow, and salter would again save the town monies. The cost of the truck is estimated to be $28,300, plow about $5,200, and the salting machine or spreader about $5,300. Any trade-in, sale, or scrap value of the existing truck, plow, and/or salter will be returned to the town. This committee also strongly suggested that the library coordinate with the Public Works Department the use of the Public Works wash basement for future storms once the new truck is purchased. The current truck has only half of the floorboard left due to corrosion. In addition, we requested that to record the number of hours the vehicle is running, and that record should be maintained as the truck is idling similar to most police cars, and hours a motor runs is a key metric for police cars versus the mileage. The library agreed to adopt these suggestions. The committee voted unanimously to increase the library grant by $38,000 for the purchase of a new truck, snowplow, and salt spreader, and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Are there any other committees which wish to report?
I see no hands.
Town officials?
I see no hands.
Members of the RTM?
No hands.
Public?
No hands.
Okay, then we're ready to vote. Okay, let's proceed.
We're at 90% voted. At 1 minute, we are 93% voted. I'm going to go ahead and close this poll.
Okay. There any no votes?
Hold on a second. We have 99% yes, 0% no, 1% abstain. Could the person who abstained raise his or her hand? Could the person or persons who abstained please raise your hand? Sorry, I'm not seeing a hand.
Did anyone abstain here in this vote? Well, the vote passes. Item passes. Next item is 22-5. New backstop for Baker Field for Park and Recreation Committee. Adele Coniff, Chair.
Adele Coniff, District 3, RTM Parks and Recreation Committee. I'd like to move 22-5, consider the approval of a special appropriation of $11,000 to replace the baseball backstop at Baker Field. Do I have a second?
Jim Cameron.
With no objection, I'd like to waive the reading of the resolution. 22-5, resolution of the representative town meeting of the town of Darien to consider the approval of a special appropriation of $11,000 to replace the baseball backstop at Baker Park. This special appropriation will replace the baseball backstop at Baker Park, which is over 30 years old. The current backstop is not stopping the balls. Foul balls are too often landing in a neighbor's yard, the parking lot, and even the street. The Parks and Recreation Department installed a net trying to correct the foul ball situation, but it did not give the desired result. The new backstop will be more robust than our older version, slightly taller and wider, and definitely an upgrade. The backstop is sized for players younger than high school. Also, the existing backstop is too far away from the home plate, so the new one will be installed closer to home plate and will arch over the plate. All of these changes should greatly reduce the number of errant balls landing in the neighbor's yard and elsewhere. Several quotes were received for this replacement project. Baker is the Darien Little League's second busiest field. The Parks and Recreation Department hopes to have the field available April 1st, ready for the start of the Darien Little League spring baseball season. Both the Board of Selectmen on February 7th and the Board of Finance on February 15th approved this special appropriation unanimously. The RTM Parks and Recreation Committee met on February 9th with 13 of 16 members present and voted unanimously in support of this special appropriation of $11,000 for a new Baker Park backstop. We hope that the RTM will support this appropriation as well. Adele Coniff, RTM Parks and Recreation Committee.
Thank you, Adele. Next, for the Finance and Budget Committee, Jack Davis, Chair.
I'm Jack Davis, District 3 Chair of the RTM Finance and Budget Committee. The committee met on February 22nd. Adele, thank you for a great report, and it's good I don't have to read a lot. We reviewed the replacement of the baseball backstop at Baker's Field, noting that it was bringing it up to standard. And there's coming out of the town's general funds, which has more than sufficient funds to cover this expense. The committee, after some discussion, voted unanimously to approve this resolution and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Are there any other committees that wish to report on this?
Seeing no hands.
The town officials?
Laura, whoops. Seeing no hands.
Members of the RTM?
Laura Pesci Gray has raised her hand.
Yes, Laura.
Laura, you're self-muted. Laura, could you try unmuting yourself?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry for the delay. I did not realize, I'm very familiar with Bakersfield, and I didn't realize the backstop was faulty. My sons play baseball there a lot. I have one question, being that this was something that is money. My son, when he pitches there, they don't have, all the other baseball fields have a regular dirt mound. So when a pitcher gets up, at Bakersfield, it's like artificial. And when you're pitching, it's a very different, like you can't actually pitch on a fake dirt. It's a very different feel, and it really changes the, has anybody ever brought that up? Since we're spending, I didn't think that there would be that much money to create a regular mound like all the other baseball fields have. I'm just curious if that's ever been brought up or evaluated. Thank you.
Laura, that would be the Park and Recreation Commission and perhaps the Park and Recreation Department in town. But it's not on the table here. What's under consideration is the backstop, the new backstop itself.
Clara Sartori.
Any others from the RTM?
I just wanted to ask about the fact that this is a special appropriation. Is that because the work needs to be done before the baseball season starts rather than wait and take it out of next year's budget?
Yes, that's the reason.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other RTM members?
Laura Pesci Gray.
Laura?
Laura, if you wish to speak, could you raise your hand again, please? Okay, I think that was an accident.
Okay. Public. Anybody from the public?
Seeing no hands.
Okay, ready to vote? Let's proceed to vote.
30 seconds. We have 86% voted. At 1 minute, we have 88% voted. I'm going to go ahead and close this. It is unanimous.
All right. Unanimous. The item passes. Next item is 22-6, special appropriation for Tilly Pond drainage study for Public Works Committee. Rolf Oden.
Ralph, could you raise your hand, please? You're
Okay, is that
unmuted.
okay now?
Yes.
Good to go?
Yes.
Okay, this is Rolf Oven, District 4, RTM Public Works Committee Chair. I move the resolution to consider the approval of a special appropriation request in the amount of $21,500 for the Tilly Pond Watershed Study. Do I have a second?
Jim Cameron.
Thank you, Jim. If there is no objection, I waive the reading of the resolution. On February 17th, the Public Works Committee held a meeting with Darien's Director of Public Works, Ed Gentile, during which he presented and we discussed the appropriation study request. The request is for funding to perform a drainage study on the Tilly Pond watershed, the lower third of which was significantly impacted by the two large storms that occurred this past year. The town has obtained a proposal to analyze this area from a consultant, Ty and Bond, that has extensive knowledge of this watershed and is well versed in this type of study. The watershed area to be studied will start south of 95 at Goodwives River crossing of Andrews Drive and extend north and upstream, encompassing Old Kings Highway South, Corbin Drive, Brook Street, Grove Street, Schwab Lane, the culvert running under Metro North Railroad, and up to Tilly Pond. The scope of work will include closed-circuit television inspection of the existing storm drainage system and the development of a hydraulic model for the area from record drawings and field reconnaissance. There will be a meeting with the Connecticut Department of Transportation District Drainage Engineer to discuss the Route 1 crossing, and that meeting will be pivotal should we consider any work to be done on this water course, because that's a state road, and of course the state of Connecticut would have to be involved. An existing conditions analysis will provide a look into the impacts of smaller storm events as well as larger ones. Based on the existing conditions model, a proposed conditions analysis will be completed to evaluate proposed improvements, if any, with an opinion of probable construction costs. Depending upon the complexity of the watershed, the timeline for a delivery of the final report is approximately 4 to 6 months. The total cost to perform this study is $43,000, which will be shared by the town and 3 impacted property owners within the watershed. This public-private partnership will split the cost 50-50 between the town and the private property owners. The Public Works Committee has a total of 13 members, of which 12 were present at the meeting and voted unanimously to approve the resolution and recommends same for the full RTM.
Thank you, Rolf. Next, for the Finance and Budget Committee, Jack Davis, Chair.
I'm Jack Davis, District 3, Chair of the RTM Finance and Budget Committee. Committee met on February 22nd, 2022, with Ed Gentile, Public Works Director, who actually showed up while he was on vacation. Kudos to Ed. And Kate Bush, Town Administrator, was also present. I want to thank Ralph for an absolutely outstanding report. which means I can only deal with the financial aspects of this. As mentioned, this is a private-public partnership. The private owners will pay the vendor directly an equal amount of $21,500, which makes the total study, as Ralph mentioned, $43,000. There's no concern regarding the financial capabilities of the other three parties that are part of this agreement. Completion of this study does not bind the town to pursue any further work. After some discussion, the committee unanimously approved this resolution and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Are there any other committees that wish to report on this?
I see no hands.
Any public town officials?
I see no hands.
Members of the RTM?
Ann Gale Hull.
Yes, Gail.
You need to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. I just wondered, what is the ultimate goal of the study? What are we trying to find out?
Ralph, you want to take that?
Okay, this is Rolf. Because of the extraordinary flooding that occurred in this area this past year, I think it was far greater than anybody expected. The thing we're trying to accomplish is it's basically a fact-finding mission to trace this water course and understand where the choke points exist, where the water backed up, why did the water back up, and then try to determine what steps would be necessary in order to either eliminate or mitigate those choke points so that water flow can move more freely should we get severe storms, which I'm sure we will in the future. So it's a fact-finding study to establish and answer those questions. And then once those questions are answered to the extent possible, we're going to have to sit down and make an evaluation as a town as to what the proposed costs are and whether we are willing to finance any work that is called for in this study. And so that's really what we're after is a fact-finding mission, determine the costs, then reconvene, review what those are, and decide whether or not we're going to proceed in any action to try and address the problem. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Just, I have one other, which is it working? Is this study only for one small portion of Darien so that there'll be many other studies after this if we approve this one?
Well, there presently are two other studies that are already been approved by the town in other areas that also had significant flooding this past year. So we're definitely in a busy time right now with numerous studies that are underway.
Okay.
So, you know, as areas are identified, you know, this area, what's kind of extraordinary about this particular area is it is the lower third of the water course. The water course actually starts as far north as just below Royal School, and it comes all the way down from there into Tully Pond, and then flows from there underneath the railroad culvert. And this lower third of the water course is what's in question. It is not considered a flood hazard at this time, yet it flooded very much so this past year. Some of you might be aware of the article that was in the Darien Patch about the gentleman, Reese Hutchison, who rescued a koi fish that was actually from Tilly Pond that ended up being in the parking lot behind the neat coffee shop. So And he rescued it and he returned it to the pond, but it's extraordinary that that much overflow from Tilly Pond came down the water course and carried that fish that far. Fortunately, he was able to rescue the fish. Otherwise, it would have ended up down at Long Island Sound at some point.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Amy
Thank you.
Zavatakis has raised her hand.
Yes, please.
Amy, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. One question I had, and I think you actually just touched on it, is there wasn't a map of what area we're talking about here, but this is really downtown Darien. Does this include like the Goodwife Shopping Plaza, all those areas that were heavily impacted?
No, it does not include the Goodwife shopping area. There have been previous studies that have already been completed with regards to the water course of the Goodwives shopping center area.
Okay, so this is going, because it starts with the Goodwives River at Andrews and then just goes sort of straight up through downtown Darien. I guess you said sort of where Neat is and then up to the Tilly Pond. That's the watershed area?
That is the area, yeah. It starts at Tilly Pond and goes all the way down across parallel with Corbin Drive, where the new drainage just went in for the Corbin project. In fact, Ty and Bond did the engineering on that drainage. So they have a lot of information already on this area. We just need to augment what they already have with more information, particularly as we cross over Post Road into the area of Grove Street, because that's where a lot of flooding occurred. And we are also very concerned about the pipe under Post Road, because if that's a choke point, we're going to have to get the state involved. So there's a lot of fact finding associated with that whole water course that we need to get unclear, so we have a good picture on how to proceed if we decide to proceed.
Got it. And so then the other the private property owners are mostly all commercial property owners that are sharing in this?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate those clarifications.
My pleasure.
We have a question from Jim Cameron.
Jim?
Jim, go
Jim
ahead.
Cameron, District 4.
Yes, Jim.
That's your
Thank you, Rolf. Could you tell us who the 3 private property owners are that are sharing the cost? And is there any implication that they would also then share any necessary cost to improve or remediate the situation? Thank you.
Okay. The 3 people that are involved are Kip Coons, Penny Glassmeyer, and David Genovese. And clearly they have substantial vested interest in that area. At this point, there is no discussion with them, to my knowledge, about them participating in any costs to do any sort of improvements. They are participating in the study. And again, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. I think we need to first conduct that study, expose the information, and have it clarified as much as possible. And at that point, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have to reconvene and review the areas that are affected, how much is public, how much is private, and see what they might be willing to do. But I think we need to first follow through with this study, which will come up with a recommendation with some possible related, not possible, but probable construction costs. And that, I think, will be our starting point with any further discussions with the private investors.
Thank you, Rolf. Are there any other comments from the floor?
I see no hands.
Okay, public?
No hands.
Okay, we're ready to vote. Let's proceed to voting.
At 30 seconds, we have 95% voted. We're frozen at 95% voted. I'm going to cancel this, close this poll.
So do we have
99% yes, 1%.
please? Yeah, well, thank you.
Can the person or persons who have voted no, please raise your hand? We have Mia Handler.
Others?
No others.
Shouldn't be. Okay. There are no abstentions?
No abstentions.
So the item passes, 22-6 passes. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
We have Clara Sartori.
Thank you, Clara. And a second, please.
Dan Guller.
Thank you. We'll proceed to vote.
At 30 seconds, we have 91% voting. At 1 minute, we have 94% voted, and that's been frozen for a bit, so I'm going to close this.
Okay.
And you have a